is telling us as men to be common, to fall in line, to fall short of any visions or plans God has for us. But what about being uncommon? This is a movement of men seeking to build an eternal legacy. A journey of men on mission to rise above the common, to experience sustainable life change. This is Uncommon Disciple. Welcome to the Uncommon Disciple podcast. My name is Michael Bowen, and with me as always is Jared Gibson.
Hello.
And a very, very special guest, my friend Scott Stone.
How are you?
How you doing, Scott?
Good.
I'm going to read this little part of an article. As we knew you were coming on, I thought it might just set the stage for what we're about to talk about. And I'll read it. It's from the Denver Post. It says, members of Battle, which is a car thief task force.
Yeah, it stands for Beat Auto Theft Through Law Enforcement.
There you go.
Oh.
Now we know.
There we go. Government likes their acronyms.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
Members of Battle were attempting to arrest Zatina around 4 p.m. Monday when he started a gun battle in which both he and El Paso County Deputy Micah Flick died. During the shootout, Detective Sergeant Jake Abishan, Deputy Scott Stone, Colorado Police Detective Marcus Yanez, and a bystander were wounded. And then it says ballistic and forensic testing will confirm whether or not Zatina fired all the shots that wounded the law enforcement officers and bystanders. So thank you for being here this afternoon, Scott. We thank you for your service to our community. And that was 4 years ago.
That was.
And I wonder, as I read it, does it stir up any memories of that faithful day?
It does. Yes. I remember it like it was yesterday, still today. So yeah, it's always burning in the back of my mind.
Yeah, interesting. As I was doing research on the podcast, knowing that you were going to come on, I couldn't help but think, as we had talked about right before you came on the episode, this guy that started doing all of the shooting, what would cause someone that was just an everyday car thief, and he is a known gang member, by the way, or was, just to start taking innocent lives, right? The desperation. And we know that sin is the root cause of all of that. So tell us about that day and give us a little bit of background. Actually, give us some background about your growing up and in faith you would share with us, and then kind of walk us to that moment of being a deputy on duty. And it's something that you probably had done a couple of times already, just going out to serve a warrant and pick up a guy that's a bad guy, and then it goes south. Yeah.
So growing up, my parents were the Sunday Christians. We always went to service on Sunday, that kind of thing. Then in middle school, something started to change, and my parents, I noticed a huge difference in the way my parents acted.
Were they both born again believers as well?
They were, yes. And actually, I shouldn't say they were. They still are, but they've made amends since everything, and they've asked for forgiveness from the Lord. There was even infidelity involved on their part, and it was a cruddy situation. Yeah. So,
how old were you at that time?
Oh gosh,
12, 13.
I go by grades. I don't know.
Yeah.
I can't go.
Well, because I shared with you again right before we got on the podcast that my parents had a falling out. Right. Well, it was pretty much the whole time I was growing up, but the major stuff happened through junior high school.
Yeah.
And then it just blew up in high school, and it was, I think, my freshman or just going into my sophomore year that my parents split up, and we were not a family of faith. So interesting to hear that perspective of growing up, in faith and, making a commitment to the Lord and, talking about faith and Jesus in your life, and then watching your parents, not play that out necessarily.
Yeah. So when I was probably in 7th, 8th grade, I started noticing a huge shift in their behavior and that kind of thing. We ended up, I remember the day that it really kind of all hit ahead was my dad decided to take us to see his family, me and my brother, to see his family, side of the family down south.
Were you living here in Colorado?
I was.
Okay.
So yeah,
we grew up here.
We grew up here. So yeah, I'm a native, which is weird.
No. We're not. So don't hate on us.
No. If you're from California, we'll talk later. So,
hey, I was born there, but Jared moved here from California.
We'll forgive you. It's okay. We love you, bro. We love you. So my dad actually is from New Orleans. He was actually in the military. He got stationed at Fort Carson. That's how him and my mom met. So when he got out, he actually ended up becoming a cop down in Fountain and then moved over to the El Paso County Sheriff's Office to be a police officer there. He actually retired as a sergeant back in 2016, 17. So he had a lot of time. He and I actually got to do patrol together and everything.
Man, that's awesome.
So not only did I get the sergeant stone, but I also had the dad stone.
Yep.
So I got a double time. So when I screwed up at work, I get a phone call after work and be like, son, what were you thinking? Yeah. Like, I'm like, this is awesome. Like, and anybody knew.
Don't make me go tell your dad.
Yeah, right. Like, I'll tell your dad on you. I'm like, whoa. All right.
We have a guy here that trains with us at the Jiu-Jitsu Academy. Same type of deal. I think his dad's retired from the force now, but he works up in Denver on the PD. And I always wondered, I didn't ask him, I wondered, did anyone ever, call your dad on you?
Oh yeah.
But this guy, he had a similar story to you. He was shot 6 times on duty, and his dad got the phone call and happened to be on duty that day.
I think I know who you're talking about too.
Yeah. So it was, when we heard your story, it really, at the pastor's conference, we were just, Jared said, hey, you got to hear his story.
Yeah. It was, so yeah, growing up, like went through all that. I ended up kind of stepping away from the church just because of how everything fell out. And then I really got back into it when I was, when I started becoming a police officer again and everything. I started making time for church. I don't know what it was. It was just like this, thing that just hit me. And I was like, I need to get back into the church, start going. But it was really lukewarm at that point.
Can I backpedal for a second?
Yeah.
For guys that are listening that have kids, and they are a family of faith, because I knew stuff was going on with my family, but I ignored it and used unhealthy coping mechanisms to deal with it. I just disappeared. Yeah. Right. I just ran out with my friends and, got drunk and whatever else we were doing. But for you as a kid, as a young man growing up in faith, what were some of those signs? What were some of the things that you were telling yourself or asking yourself about faith, watching your parents, play out, let's call it hypocrisy, right? Yeah. That they were saying one thing, but doing a whole different thing or lifestyle. And listen, I think to an extent, we're all hypocrites in faith. But this is playing out for real. Cause my wife and I don't argue very much. Right. But when we do, it's intense fellowship. Let's call it. And the kids know. As a matter of fact, we got an intense fellowship yesterday, and our son said, "I don't like when you guys do that." And he's 15 years old, and he knows that we're committed to one another. Yeah. But he had heard, the raising of the voice. Yeah. And we needed to go address that with him, and what I said to him was, now you know how we feel when you and your sisters fight, but I didn't want to excuse the behavior. Yeah. But I said, this is what relationship looks like. Yeah. It doesn't mean that we fight, we run out the door and leave one another. Yeah. We do hard things. We go back and we talk about it, and we talk about things, and we have to pray through, where are these feelings and emotions come from? So you as a kid watching this play out in faith, I just wanted to hear your perspective on that. And, did you confront your parents, or did you just hold it in? I don't even know if you have siblings that you guys might have discussed it behind the scenes.
We did. So my sister actually blamed me for the reason why my parents got divorced. So it was super intense. Good grief. Yeah. And then I had a little brother too. I have a little brother, and he just kind of he clung to my mom big time. So, and my sister kind of clung to my mom. So I kind of saw my dad left out to dry. So I kind of tried to hang out with my dad. But the problem is my dad started dating right away too. Oof. So, and my mom, I knew she was dating people, and she was kind of hanging out with her friends, going out to the bar and that kind of stuff. And it really bothered me, but I never talked to him about that because my dad was very, very military, very regimented. You don't talk about stuff like that. You don't confront parents on that kind of stuff. I wish though, looking back at it and knowing now, in similar situations where your kids can see that kind of stuff, I wish my dad would have just came to me and said, "Hey, this is what this
Sat
is." What
down
this
and talked
is.
to you.
Yeah. So I think that would have been huge, because the knowing where they're at with stuff and not getting to be able to actually have that conversation with them really hurt. And I struggled with that a lot. So I learned to just bury it and just kind of move forward. And I ended up getting involved with a girl in high school that I shouldn't have gotten involved with. We ended up having a really serious relationship. And then I put all my eggs in that basket instead of with the Lord, and it ended up crumbling. It ended up falling apart. And it was crazy. Like,
that sounds like a familiar story.
Yes, it does.
Jared's story.
Yeah. Similar circumstance.
Dude.
Yeah.
You get involved with girls, and like you put everything into that girl, and then all of a sudden, boom, like it's all destroyed one day. So
all of it's gone. Yeah.
I feel you, bro.
Yeah.
I feel you.
But I think we can, for the guys listening, we can almost live in an imaginary world where we think our kids don't know what's going on.
Oh yeah.
But they know what's going on.
Oh, they see it.
And so it's critical to communicate to your kids. When you have a falling out, or if you have an argument, or listen, if something really goes south, like infidelity or whatever else was the catalyst for your parents splitting up, to sit down and have conversation with them. Yeah. Right. Because that's the perfect time to have conversation about faith, because a lot of kids grow up and they don't have it discussed. And then we wonder why they're living, they're in rehabs, or they're in, multiple marriages later on. It's because no one sat down with them and just discussed with them. This is what life looks like in a fallen world.
Even the ugly.
Even the ugly.
And keeping the truth in it. And I mean, I had, similar circumstances. My parents tiptoed quite a bit about the truth of the world and about things that were going on, like at home. And, when I got to the real world, I had no idea what I was doing. And then I've tried to make it intentional with my kids to, because some of the listeners have heard, my story and everything like that. And some of the stupid things I did early on in marriage, like I've had those real raw, conversations with my daughter, and, but like, listen, your dad's saved by grace, So
let me ask you, now we'll fast forward to high school.
Yes.
You had this long-term relationship with the wrong girl.
Yes.
All right. Now the breakup happens. Was that the catalyst to get you into law enforcement?
No. So that actually was the catalyst to get me into going into like military and everything. And I went into the military, but I ended up getting severely injured at basic, where I ended up having to come back home.
What military?
Army. So, and I was supposed to be
Army
an
basic
intel
training
specialist.
So you're a smart guy.
I was a smart dude. I was like, but not smart enough to go Air Force. But
hey, we love all the military here,
right?
So
I love them. It's all
but
good.
The Air Force does have it pretty plush. We used to make fun of them as well.
Right.
Yeah.
We always talked about that when I was growing up and everything. My dad, because he was an Army guy, he was a Delta Scout and everything, and so he was always like, if you're going to go into any branch, go into the Air Force. They had it good. I always remember looking at them when I was doing stuff, and I was like, they're in air conditioned hotels, and I'm in a tent or sleeping in a foxhole.
Hey, bro, listen to this. We had a friend of ours recently go to boot camp. It was my daughter's friend, actually, and she was calling my daughter on her cell phone from boot camp. And I said, what the, it's like, how does that happen? Like, we got one phone call and we had someone staring at us the whole time. And it was like, you were afraid to say anything except, hi, I made it safely. Goodbye.
Right. Well, so dude, my brother-in-law, he joined the Navy, and he's going in ROTC. So he actually got a full ride scholarship.
Sure.
Dude is brilliant. He's going for nuclear engineering. Oh. So that's a whole nother story. But like, his mom got really upset, and she calls us upset, and she's like, he called me just now, but all he could say was, hi, I love you, I'm here, goodbye.
That's the first phone call home.
That's it, dude. Yeah. That's it.
But I think they get legit phone time and stuff now, like on their Sundays or whatever.
I believe it.
Yeah.
Dude, so crazy. But
so you get injured in basic.
I got injured in basic.
And that's always heartbreaking. We had another guy on here, an older guy, who also was injured in basic training, or right before he was about to leave for basic.
Mm-hmm.
And it really had him question about, what he was going to be doing with his life.
Yeah.
And so is that the point you were at as well?
Yeah. So I decided I was still too young to get into law enforcement. So I got into IT work.
Okay.
But I always kind of had it in the back of my mind that I wanted to
That story sounds familiar too.
Dude, you and I are like kindred spirits,
I know,
bro.
Right?
You guys are both IT. You guys even had to look at each other when I said that.
We were like,
oh yeah.
It's just the thing.
Yeah.
When you know.
There you go.
So, I got into IT. I ended up doing that for a little while. I actually worked for HP until I came to about 20 years old. Yeah. So, and I applied for the police academy. Here in Colorado, there's something called Pay to Play Academy.
Sure.
You pay the community college to go to the training, and then you can get hired on from there.
Wow.
So I actually did that, and I got hired on with Colorado Parks and Wildlife.
There you go.
So I got to be a ranger, and I didn't do it. I thought it was going to be really awesome.
That looks like the coolest job in the world, is it not?
I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
It's totally not.
Oh,
but
we still love them.
Yeah. I got to go out and do the boat stuff and everything.
But you had to yell at people that were like fishing without a license. Yeah, that kind of sucks.
And it really sucked because I had to sit on a boat ramp sometimes.
Do you fish?
I do.
Yeah, so that makes it even worse.
Yeah.
Like, this guy's just out like a grandpa with his grandchild, trying to catch a fish. And you're like, dude, where's your license?
Yeah, like, bro, I need to see your license. And they're like, we don't have a license. And you're like, I
don't say that.
Just
you left it in the truck.
yeah. So, but I remember sitting on boat ramps and having to tell people like, hey, you got to go get your boat decon because we have like aquatic nuisance species here.
Yep.
And that was a pain in the butt. Nobody wanted to do that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So they hated you.
Basically. They did.
Yeah.
So I decided to get a real cop job. So it's okay. I love the Parks and Wildlife guys. They have an important job, but I was missing a part of it. So I ended up working for Manatee Springs Police Department. Mm-hmm. And I was with them for about 2.5 years. About 2013 timeframe in El Paso County, a tax initiative got passed for the county sheriff to hire on more deputies.
Sure.
And they needed people.
Is it higher paying in the sheriffs? Okay.
So
we just had a guy here actually in his 40s go through the sheriff's academy.
Really?
Yeah, he's a Douglas County sheriff now. Good guy.
Yeah.
God bless him, man.
Yeah, but hey, he walked away from a high paying job because he saw a lot of people exiting the law enforcement field, and he felt called to go there and be one of the good guys.
Good. So. Yeah. It really is a calling too. You have to want to be there. So especially in today's environment. So it's crazy. Yeah. So I ended up at the time Manitou didn't pay as much as the sheriff's office down there. So I ended up getting on with the sheriff's office, started going through that. My overall goal was actually to be in Vice and Narcotics, like the undercover dude. I wanted long hair and to grow like the beard and be like the biker guy.
This looks weird just coming out of a guy that was in IT's mouth, right? Like he wanted to be like
I wanted to be the biker guy. Like, I was like, they're going to give me a Harley and I'm going to go buy drugs. Yeah.
When you talk about it like that, it does sound like a cool job.
But I have a mission. I'm like, I'm catching the guy. So like, it was awesome. Like, so I ended up, as I was going through the sheriff's office, I ended up starting off on patrol. I went through patrol and I got part of the uniformed gangs team and then a part of the uniformed narcotics team. Mm-hmm. So I did get to buy drugs every now and then with them and do all that kind of cool undercover stuff.
Did they ask you if you were a cop?
All the time. Yeah. Like this screams cop.
Okay. You want to hear something funny?
I would like to buy some drugs.
I asked that guy that I was just talking about from Denver PD because he was on the beat for that as well. I said, hey, bro, do they ever ask you if you're a cop? And he says, yeah. And immediately I would just punch him in the face. And I was like, what does that do? He says, well, I just said, what are you, stupid? Do you think I'd be buying drugs from you? And they think, well, this cop ain't allowed to hit me. So they would sell the drugs. Yeah. He says, then I go arrest him right afterwards.
Yeah. Like, I just look at them and go, no.
Yeah.
Are you? And they're like, no, why would you think that? I'm like, I don't know. Why would you think that of me? And they're like, good point. And you're like,
not the smartest people.
Right? Yeah. So yeah, dude, it was crazy. But so I ended up by doing that. I was doing that part time. I got offered a part time position with the auto theft task force, and so they were like, "Hey, do you want to come out and do this?"
What year was this?
Oh gosh.
Don't mind asking.
This was 2016.
Okay, so I'm trying to keep the timestamp, right?
Yeah.
Because leading up to 2018. So now you're in this car theft task force.
Yep. Part-time. And
Did you like it?
Oh, I loved it.
Yeah, that's a big thing here in Castle Rock, believe it or not. Like they have license plate readers, evidently, around here. And so if someone in the stolen car comes off in the town, they know it immediately.
Oh, bro. So
we won't talk about all the secret stuff.
Right.
But
I will tell you, all the license plate readers in Colorado go to like a central system. Law enforcement doesn't have access to everything. But if you're driving around in a stolen car and you pass one of those, we'll know.
Yeah.
They're going to get you. Yeah, dude, it's not worth it.
That's something to take into consideration.
Yeah.
Don't be a car thief.
Don't be a car thief. It does not profit. So
you get put on this task force in 2016 and you're doing it part-time. Did you dig it? You dug the job?
I loved it. I did.
Did you like chasing people? Was that what you liked?
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
It was cool because what I would do is we would tag cars. We'd do all sorts of different things. And we would follow them and let them take us back to like their dope houses or their chop shops. We busted like 3 or 4 chop shops when I was doing the task force and everything.
So you wouldn't pull them over immediately? You'd be like,
no.
Let's see where they're going.
Oh yeah, we would follow
in unmarked cars.
Maybe.
Huh?
So I will tell you, insurance companies, when they total out vehicles that are still drivable, they don't get rid of them. And they use them for certain things.
Oh, for certain things.
Certain things.
I got you.
Yes.
I like that.
Yeah.
Certain things.
Certain things.
Yeah.
So So we got to play with all sorts of toys. So it was great. So we we would follow them. We would do these big busts. We would then we would go in and try buying parts from them and do all sorts of other stuff. And they would take us back. And a lot of times those chop shops and dope houses would lead us back to cartels and bigger things. And then we would end up handing cases off to like the DEA or something. Or we would just get to a hitting point where we're like, okay, we can't cross international borders now. So now we got to drop it from there. So
give it to the feds.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. So were you lukewarm in your faith at this point, or were you walking in faith, around this time?
I felt a calling, but I was still pretty lukewarm. Like I got paid I was like married to the job, which sucked for my wife. I was so.
How long have you been married at this point?
I was married in 2014. So 2016, we were married for 2 years.
Well, she knows what she's getting herself into, right? At this point.
Oh,
yeah. Being married to a cop, that's not going to be like, I'm home every night for dinner, honey.
Husband.
Yeah.
And she knew I loved dangerous stuff. I loved going and playing. I did. We had worked 410s. And the auto theft task force was a part-time gig, but it was an auxiliary duty. So we got paid overtime for that. So there's one of my 3 days gone. And then I normally would pick up an overtime shift either on Sunday. I would go work at the church because some churches hire cops to be there for extra security. Yep. So I'd go do that. Or I would go and work for the auto auction down in Fountain. And I would go and be a cop down there for the day or whatever. And so there's another day gone.
It's getting overtime and extra pay.
Oh yeah. So
we have a lot of guys that do that here as well.
Oh yeah. And it's a slippery slope. You don't realize how much time you're taking away from your family until that actually happens.
Yeah. Well, Jared and I have talked about this on previous episodes, is that we start at our younger ages, right? Mm-hmm. Thinking that money is the most important thing. Yeah. I have to provide for my family. Yeah. I have to provide for my family, and never think about the cost. We have I have another buddy of mine who's a huge podcaster. And he just recently took a hunting trip out to Hawaii and missed Father's Day.
Ooh.
And so he was blogging about it on a social media post, and how he had this dichotomy of always wanting to go do this type of hunting trip. But at the same time, he preaches to men about stepping up and being good husbands and good dads.
Yeah.
Yet he wasn't home for Father's Day. And listen, I know he loves his family. I know this dude is a good dad and provider, but the same happens with us in our vocations, right? We start seeing a chance. Well, maybe if I get a couple of days of overtime, I can go to, Bali instead of, Nebraska.
I can do this
for vacation, right?
Or the other worst slippery slope is if I do this overtime, eventually I can get promoted and it'll look good for the bosses.
There you go. So people pleaser.
People pleaser. Yeah. People do that a lot. And I saw it. I saw it a lot when I was in it. So, dude, I tell you what, that is the biggest thing is I see, especially in law enforcement, and I know it translates to any kind of vocation, guys get so wrapped up in their vocation because they want to prove that they're successful. They want to prove that they're worthy. And you just end up forgetting about what's most important.
Yep.
So where's your first ministry that God has given you? Your family.
Well, a lot of guys,
dude.
Again, I don't want to say a lot of guys. I don't want to make a generalized comment like that. But there are many guys on the force that aren't guys of faith.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a good witnessing opportunity. It's like being in the military. I don't remember a lot of guys being guys of faith. I know that they had a Sunday deal that I'd go to only because I did something bad during the week and I felt like I needed to do that to make up for it.
I need the cleansing.
Yeah, I need to cleanse the week. Right. That's the only reason I went. I never gave my heart to Christ, but I thought that going to church on Sunday was going to fix whatever I did during the week. Yeah. Right. So yes, we lose sight of the important things when we get focused on being a people pleaser. Now, from a leadership perspective, in retrospect, right? Guys that did they often get promoted?
Yes and no.
Meaning, was all of that work worth it?
No.
Right?
I don't think a lot of guys, if I talk to a lot of those guys now, a lot of times they won't say it was worth it. Like I had a buddy of mine, his wife promoted through the ranks and everything. And she just got to the point where she was just burnt out completely. Yeah. And she's like, what did I do this for? And like, she decided to hold off on having kids and all this other stuff to be able to go up through the ranks. And then all of a sudden now she's like, what do I have to show for it? Like, I'm a number. They're going to forget about me when I'm gone.
And with you, it had to be a real slippery slope because your dad was a cop.
Oh, yeah. Oh, dude.
Right? Oh, you got promoted because your dad. Did you ever get that?
Oh, yeah. All the time. Yeah. I get, you're only doing the battle task force because of your dad, or, you're a golden child, or you're one of the good old boys, and that kind of thing. And you just hear that stuff and you're like, man, I worked my butt off to get where I am. So
yeah, it's weird in the military or in law enforcement or, the fire department, any first responder job, because a lot of time politics is involved.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And so you have one of two things. Either it's political or someone's just a really good leader and they take care of their people. Yeah. And that pushes them up the ladder. Yeah. And I like the latter.
Hey,
meaning the later, right? I like the second part of that because when it's political, I think people get hurt. Yeah. And get they get discouraged in their vocation and start hating the job versus, hey, this is what I joined this because of my love for the job.
And it's easy to see. It's easy to see, especially in those kinds of careers, who's in it because they love the job and they love the people, and who are in it because they just want to promote or they want to just be the top dog and that kind of thing. So when you get true leaders who want to actually do good or want to change something for the better, it's easy to see. And Jake Abishan is one of those guys. He just wants to better the department, and I loved working for him.
Is he still on the force?
He is.
Oh, great.
He's in charge of training, which I'm super happy about.
Yeah, and listen, that's the best place for those guys.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So they can influence the next generation of people. So we're going to pick back up on we're around 2016 now. We're leading up to 2018, the big event.
Yes.
And just how that's affected your life and where God has you now. So we'll be right back. All right, we're back with Scott Stone.
Ooh.
Yes, it sounds good, man. That's a great name, by the way.
Dude,
isn't JD and Jocko's friend Seth Stone?
Yeah.
The guy, one of the guys that just passed away from a skydiving accident just a few years ago.
Yeah, but how cool is it to be able to come up on cars and be like, hello, I'm Deputy Stone, or I'm Detective Stone.
Yes.
I'm here to investigate this.
Did you have a nickname on the force?
I did, but it wasn't anything cool.
Was it Stoner?
No, actually my dad's was, because his first name is Robert. So on the back of his car, it read Stone R. So everybody called him Stoner.
That's legit.
Yeah, that is legit.
Yes.
No, my nickname was, so when I was with Manitou, wasn't anything cool. It was Scooter, because I was 21, so I was the young guy.
Yeah.
So they called me Scooter, and then
dude, I would have changed that immediately.
Like, no, can we do something cool like The Rock or something? I don't know, but yeah, no. It's kind of like
I'm not Stone, I'm Rock.
Yeah. So then when I went to the sheriff's office, because my dad was known as Big Stone or whatever, because he's Daddy Stone and everything. They called me Pebbles. I was like,
dude, I might have just stuck with Scooter, bro.
Never mind. Can we go back to Scooter?
Yeah, can we go back to Scooter, please? Like,
oh, jeez.
It's like fighter pilots. You can't choose your name.
Yeah,
like,
you're right. You're right.
It doesn't work
You're
that way.
That's funny. Yeah. Well, in a generation now where we get offended by everything, you know, someone probably can run it up the line and go, I don't like that.
I don't like that. How dare you? Yeah, then they'll just say it behind your back or like in briefing, like, Pebbles, do you have anything else? No. I did something cool yesterday. What? I don't know.
So funny. Wow. Sorry. So now we're in 2016. Let's get back on track. 2016. You're working part-time with Battle.
Yes.
And you're loving it.
I'm loving it.
Chase down bad guys, go buy stolen parts, and
yeah,
you know,
do all the fun stuff.
It
was pretty stagnant between 2016 and 2018. I was just trying to make everything work. I was juggling everything.
Yep.
I had my son Carter in 2015.
Oh, nice.
So I was managing all that.
So he's like a year or two. This is like the terrible twos that you're on.
Yeah.
You're on call now.
Oh yeah.
You're like,
it was.
Can I volunteer for another job somewhere?
Yeah. Where do you need people? I heard I can be off only for 12 hours, right? And then come back in. Yeah. So yeah, it was crazy. I did as much as I could. I got involved as much as I could. But I really saw a degradation in my marriage, and my wife and I were always butting heads. Like, but she wanted another kid, which I thought was like nuts. I was like, what? We're having all these, we're constantly butting heads.
She's like, I want to practice having more kids.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, I'm all into that.
Like, fine, let's do it. I'll come home. We'll practice having kids, and then I'll go back to work.
Yeah.
All right.
Now, let me ask you, during that time, was it the normal stuff, you know, the marriage finances, you're not home enough.
Yep.
You don't care about me, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And my wife had taken a job she originally was working for the school district, and then she got another job working for a pre-K school and everything. And she was loving it. They made her in charge of like curriculum and stuff like this. So she was having a lot of fun. And so during the week, if I had a day off during the week, I was home by myself. So I would get caught up on whatever I needed to. And then I would see him I tried to see him like on the weekends or something like that on Sunday or on a Saturday.
Yep.
And I did try to take as much holiday time as I could with them. Because we ended up having like flex holidays where we could just use it wherever. So I would take that every now and then. I would make sure that I was off for his birthday and for her birthday and that kind of stuff. But it was just stale. Like we really didn't, we were almost faking the funk a little bit. So, and I knew going into 2018 that was where we were, but we were trying to have another kid, and we were like, well, maybe this will kind of help things. In the back of my mind at that time, I knew that I was getting more involved with Brian Michaels. So Brian Michaels is the senior pastor for the church I go to. He was
a Calvary guy for a while too. Yeah.
Yeah. So he actually became a reserve.
He was from
deputy.
Vegas. Was that right?
Yeah.
Yep.
He was, so he started off here in the Springs. He was actually the senior pastor of Rocky Mountain Calvary when I was going there.
Yes.
So I knew I kind of had a relationship with him. Him and my dad were pretty close when I was growing up. So when he came back, we started talking. The church I was going to shut down, so I started going to his church. I was like, yeah, I want to kind of get involved, but I'm not sure where. So I just kind of like left it be. I just kind of let it linger out there. He came to me and he's like, hey, I'm going to become a reserve with the sheriff's office. He's like, can I ride with you every now and then? I actually ended up becoming one of his training officers.
Wow.
So it was kind of a weird situation, but
the Lord orchestrated that.
Oh,
for
yeah.
Sure. No doubt.
Oh, yeah.
You're lukewarm, having marriage problems. The Lord's like, all right.
Yeah.
Hey. I got your new co-pilot, buddy.
Hey. Yeah, we're going to do this.
Yes.
And so it did help. It helped a lot because I got a little bit closer. I got more involved, reading my Bible, getting more into the Spirit, and just trying to find out where the Spirit wanted me to go. And I had a tug on my heart, but I really wasn't sure where I was supposed to go. So I had a conversation. I remember this conversation.
What year was this again?
This is now fast forward to
17?
2018.
18. Okay, so now this is right before the incident.
Yeah.
See, and I find that interesting as well, right?
Yeah.
That the Lord starts aligning things for you.
Yeah.
Putting people next to you, saying, all right, time to wake up, Scott.
Yeah. So it was that. It was exactly that.
Yeah.
And I remember, so if for folks that were around in 2000, at the beginning of 2018, that's when the Zachary Parrish shooting happened.
Yep.
So, and I'm actually pretty close with Jeff Paley and all the guys that were involved with that now. But back then, I remember when he died, me and my wife were going to his funeral. And I had asked, so my grandfather, I need to backtrack a little bit more. My grandfather in the 70s was a motorcycle cop in New Orleans, and he was killed in the line of duty.
I remember you did write that in your bio.
Yeah. Yep. So I remember asking my dad, hey, do you remember like going to his funeral and all that kind of stuff?
It was your dad's dad.
Yeah.
Yep.
So and my dad was like, yeah, I remember going to this. And so like, I felt like just like this, like hearing about this death and what happens to the family afterwards. Like that was really where like, I just felt just my heart going towards and that kind of thing. So I was like, I remember having a conversation with the Lord and saying, Lord, where do you want me? What am I actually supposed to be doing? What do I need to do to bless you, to make you happy? Where do I need to go with this? And I remember using those words because I really wasn't sure what I should be actually saying. But I knew I wanted to do something to glorify the Lord. So then at the end of January, Heath Gum was killed in Adams County. So, and
do you guys talk about that on the force when someone gets killed? Like, hey, did you hear about? And does it make you think while you're out on duty?
Oh yeah. Everybody becomes like hypersensitive when they
pull someone over or if they're out on the beat. Yep.
Because it's kind of like hockey. The first 30 seconds to a minute after somebody scores is like the most intense in the game. Gotcha. That kind of thing. Okay. It's just like that in law enforcement. That 30 seconds to a minute after somebody dies, it's super intense. Everybody's on edge. They're like, could I be next? Could this have been me? So we went out that week knowing that was fresh in our mind. So and with battle, normally how it worked. So now fast forward to the actual day of the February 5th, 2018. That morning we go into briefing like normal. We started at 4 or 5. We'd get updates on stolen cars, all that kind of stuff in the area. And we would just go out and we would look for these stolen cars.
Right.
So we found this car sitting in a parking lot that was was showing up as stolen. Mm-hmm. So we call the owner, say, hey, we found your car. We can either recover it or we can do some police work and see if we can, find out where this guy is going with it, who actually stole it, that kind of stuff. So the owner says, yeah, that's cool. Around lunchtime, we get notification that the vehicle starts moving. So now we're starting to follow it, and we're trying to follow it all around town. The kid, Zatina, actually spray painted it at one point. Yeah. So this
is manual?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
He's 19 years old too. Right?
19.
Yeah. And he just had a couple of, from what I read, just a couple like misdemeanor drug charges at that point.
Like pot.
Nothing, nothing major that you would think, man, we're going to pull this guy over and he's going to just start blasting us.
No. So we wait for a while. He ends up pulling into this parking lot over off of Marine Galley. So we get the go ahead. Hey, we're going to do the takedown. Basically, we're going to take him into custody, that kind of thing. So we're starting to walk up this like alleyway type thing. We have guys setting up all over the place, undercovers and that kind of thing. I'm in plain clothes with my partner, Micah, at this point.
Were you vested?
We were vested, but we had it underneath. And then what we would do is when we come up and approach them, we would normally like show badges and that kind of thing. And like we would grab a hold of them and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So,
but you had your vest.
Yes.
Good.
So we start walking up to him. He looks like he's about to like run. So I grab a hold of him because he had his hands in his hoodie pocket. And so as I do that, Mike is going to flip out his vest.
How far were you? Were you pretty close to him at this time?
Oh yeah, I had my hands.
Because I think when I read, Micah took a shot like right up top center, just below his neck.
So
what missed his whole body armor?
Yep.
Yeah.
So my shot was actually first. I got hit first. So when I grabbed his hands from in his hoodie and everything, I grabbed a hold of him and I said, police. And all of a sudden I feel something impact my hip.
Yeah.
Like it felt like he punched me almost. And I was like,
that's how this guy up in Denver described it as well. Like because all the adrenaline was gone, but he says it felt like someone punched me.
Yeah. You're like, what the heck? And like it starts stinging. You're like, holy crud. Like, what did he hit me with?
Yeah.
Right.
Like, so we start fighting. And all of a sudden I remember trying to keep his hands in his hoodie pocket because I knew something bad was going to happen.
Yeah.
Well, it's because he wanted to take out his hand.
Was he a big guy?
He was probably about, he's probably a little bit shorter than you. He was stacked though. He was pretty built.
Got it.
So, he had doper strength. He actually was hyped up on meth. So we actually watched him smoke.
Yeah, I did read that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So he actually got his right hand free out of his hoodie and he was trying to raise it up by my head. Well, later on, I realized it was because he was trying to put the gun to my head.
Got it.
So that's when Micah jumped in. And so Micah started fighting over the gun with him. Gun went up in the air kind of, and the kid got his finger on the trigger and it went off, caught Micah right in the trach, exited his lower back, and Micah hit the ground. Marcus came running up, grabbed a hold of Zatina, knocked him down to the ground. And they ended up doing the ballistics, and all the rounds that hit law enforcement and the bystander were rounds from Zatina's gun.
Nice.
So we ended up returning fire. We were able to stop the threat at that point. But Micah was gone.
So after what was his name, Marcus put hands on him.
Mm-hmm.
Did this guy Manuel get up and run? That you guys had to fire at him, or
so after Marcus got him to the ground, Emmanuel still had the gun, and he actually just started blind firing. He just literally put the gun above his head and just started pointing in every
everyone
direction,
ducking for cover, and kind of like, holy crap, what's going on here?
Yeah, that's how Jake got hit.
Yeah.
So I mean, it was crazy. It was intense, and he got off 17 rounds. I think
17.
Wow.
Yeah, he just unloaded the gun.
Yeah.
So
he had an extended mag.
Yeah. So I mean, and I don't like to admit it, but he had a high point. And, we always talk about high points being like the worst gun in the world.
Yep.
Yeah. So I got shot with a high point.
Yeah.
Some people tell me I shouldn't admit that, but
hey,
it's a gun.
Listen,
So.
A weapon is a weapon.
Yeah.
Right. So,
and if it's firing, it's just as dangerous.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I ended up getting hit. Once the dust kind of settled, I remember looking. I ended up falling to the ground.
Yep.
I couldn't bend above the waist or below the waist.
Were you just hit once?
I was just hit once, but the bullet entered my left hip and is actually back by my spinal cord.
Yep.
So, and I don't have full function of my left leg because of it. So,
any major arteries? Did you bleed out?
Yeah, I did bleed out quite a bit. I ended up having to have I think it was 5 units of blood.
Yeah, because you were close to death.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. When I was, fast forward a little bit to the hospital. I remember when the nurse was like, "Hey, what's your wife's number?" I'm like, "Don't worry about it. My command staff will call my wife. They'll take care of that. Don't worry about it." And she's like, No. What's your wife's number? And I'm like, "Oh, she's working right now. She doesn't have her cell phone." So they ended up looking up the phone number for her. And all of a sudden the nurse comes in and I hear her saying, "Hi, is Aleyana Stone available?" I'm like, "Don't call her. You're going to freak her out."
She thought that maybe this guy's not going to make it.
Well, and that's exactly what I found out later was they wanted me to be able to say goodbye to her before just in case, before I went into surgery. So that was heart-wrenching to know. Oof. So,
wow.
Yeah. So,
and it just got me a little choked up.
Wow. Dude.
Yeah.
It was,
my wife and I reconnected. We had met each other before we got married, and it was just after 9/11, and we always thought, like that one the call, who would it be, and getting that phone call. You think of the people that were in the plane, they were trying to make that last phone call, and it's like that's what it just reminded me of,
dude. Yeah. No, and that's, I mean, seriously,
does that give you new perspective when you leave the house today?
Oh yeah,
like how, because like I said, my wife and I had intense fellowship yesterday, and I think I left the house without saying goodbye for the first time in a long time. And it hit me today as I was in my devotion. I went, man, that was stupid.
Yeah.
And then I just texted her, hey, I love you.
Yeah.
And wanted to make right. But, in our flesh, we just do stupid things.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing is we think we're at like a low point and we think that we've got nothing else. Like every life has gone to crap. We're arguing with our spouse. There's nothing left for us and that kind of thing. There's always something.
Yeah.
God has always given us something to hold on to. And if we take the second just to think about what God has actually given us and what we still have in our lives, we'll see that there's something worth fighting for. There's something that God has given us. And that's the biggest thing.
Well, we always tell each other, hey, I'm not your enemy, and she knows that, that we know that there's a spiritual force at work.
Yeah.
That's trying to break us apart,
Absolutely.
right? Trying to put a wedge between us. And when you realize that, it really helps put things into perspective, right? But like you had just mentioned, the nurse is trying to call your wife and say, hey, we want to make sure this guy can say goodbye.
Yeah.
And then I start thinking about like, what was the last thing you said before you left the house that day?
Yeah.
Like, hey, make sure my dinner's ready, whatever. It's like stupid things that guys might say, like, hey, like I'm not going to be home until late, instead of, hey, I love you. And I just want you to know that, you know, and no more, no less. And sometimes I consider the things that I say to people before I leave them. And Jared knows this.
Yeah.
What are they going to say about me? Not that I care about what people think necessarily, that I don't do it to please them, but what will they remember me by? You know, by my last words. What was this guy really worried about? Or what were the things that were important to him? And I think that's important for all of us to consider when we're interacting with not only our family, but with the people that we interact with day to day. Right?
Yeah.
It could be the person that you're driving down the road next to and they're flicking you off, and you're smiling and going, praise the Lord, brother.
Hey, dude, I love you, man.
Like, God has a plan for you, brother.
We joke about it, but it's so true.
Yeah.
What are people going to remember from us? Are they going to remember that we took the time just to be able to say, hey, God loves you, or you matter? Mm-hmm. Or are they going to remember that we just blew them off and that kind of thing?
Well, in light of an eternity, right? Is anything that we really, really worry about on a day-to-day basis, is it really that major?
Right. No.
In light of eternity. Yeah. If we know that God's going to provide for us and we believe his word, right? The things that I really get mad about or upset about, or things that, start to stir up some things within my heart, they're really not that important.
Mm-hmm. Right.
If I can really, really pare it down to its lowest value, it's not really that important.
No. And sometimes it takes people getting down to that lowest point to get to that point where you may lose everything, or you feel like you've already lost everything and you have nothing else to live for. But I tell you what, man, if you just take a second and just think, what has God blessed me with?
So let's talk about that, right? Because I made some notes here, and I wrote, some people will take their pain and isolate and withdraw, right? They'll use unhealthy coping mechanisms to deal with the pain of what just happened, right? Mm-hmm. They won't process it. They won't talk to people about it. And they'll go, oh, just get better. I'll just get me back on the job.
Yeah.
Fix my hip. Let me back out.
I'll be at.
Right?
Let me out.
And others will take the same pain and use it for God's glory, to encourage others and to help them along. And we know that near-death experiences are nothing new for God's people. Mm-hmm. But we have to realize that God sometimes uses these things to draw us closer to him.
Absolutely.
For his will, or to redirect us for his will for our lives. Mm-hmm. Right. And so in this case, you're in the hospital bed, right? You're obviously still here. So you lived.
I did.
So are you retired? Are you medically retired from the force?
I did. I want to mention something that you just talked about, though. So when I was in the parking lot and I remember bleeding out, and like the sergeant and everybody was rushing around and that kind of thing, I remember seeing the sky going gray to blue to gray to blue and everything. And I was like, oh, crap.
Did everything slow down for you at that point?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, because people asked me what it was like in Haiti when I almost got shot. Yeah. Right. And it's like the Matrix almost. Yeah. Right. I knew what was going on, but it didn't seem real to me. Like the lamp exploding above my head, or the round coming 4 inches, like I heard it whiz by my ear, but in that moment, it was like slow-mo. It was like everything just slowed down.
Oh yeah.
And I was in the moment. So
yeah, I mean, and that's where I was. Like, I remember things slowing down, and I'm like, crud. So I remember going through my training and that kind of thing. Like, one of the things they never tell you is, like, when you're in a firefight for the first time, you may end up like peeing or pooping yourself if you have a full bladder. So I remember checking myself for that. I'm like,
I just clapped here, so don't try to cut. Just don't try to edit the podcast here. But dude, that is amazing.
Yeah.
Right. Like the first thing. Hey, did I crap myself? Did I pee myself? I cannot let this happen.
I would probably check too.
And then if my hand would have come up with something other than clear, I'd have been like, "Hey, bro, get me a blanket."
You're not telling anybody about this.
Never, ever.
Yes.
So I remember like going over the wound and it's red, and I'm like, okay, I'm hit. I remember feeling like the bump in the back and everything. I'm like, okay, nothing red there, so that means it's probably still in me. Checking there and everything, and so and I'm like,
are my privates still there? Like, definitely check that.
We're good. So you're bad. So and then I remember like praying and going, God, please don't let me die here in this parking lot. This is not what I had envisioned. And God, I know you've got a plan for me. I will do whatever you want me to do. If you let me be a father to my son and a husband to my wife, and God, please don't kill me, because if you kill me, my wife will get really mad because I haven't given her another kid. So 2 weeks into the hospital, though, God said, "Joke's on you. She's already pregnant." So,
wow.
I think a lot of guys would do that. Right?
Yeah.
And I've made those deals with God. I'm going to be honest and transparent with you. Lord, if you just get me out of this one, or I'll never do it again.
Yeah.
And I'm stupid and I do it again.
Yeah.
Right. So, but for you, this is real, because you made that covenant with the Lord. You made that agreement with him.
Yes.
And you kept it.
I did. So in the hospital room, Brian kept on coming to see me. My wife kept on.
So now this pastor that's been riding with you for the last 2 years,
or
year and a half or whatever it was.
Yeah. He's like, "Hey dude, like, when are you getting out of bed?"
Yeah.
And I'm like,
"Are you ready to serve the Lord now, buddy?"
Yeah, pretty much. So it was a gruesome recovery. So I had to learn how to walk again. I had to learn how to be able to like just stabilize myself on my feet.
Yep.
I still have issues with like swelling in my leg because they use Quick Clot.
Yep.
So it killed the entire iliac vein in my left leg all the way up to my middle back.
Jeez.
Oh. So so I'm on blood thinners for the rest of my life, all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
So so while I was going through recovery, I started getting back into church and just making sure I was there, and I really felt this calling. And Brian had ended up having some staff that left the church and everything. So and right about that time, there was a person in our congregation who was pretty involved in everything. He died. And now his wife was like, "I don't know what to do." I was one of the first people she called. Like, she's like, "I don't know what to do. What should I do?" Yeah. So
welcome to ministry.
Yeah. And it was literally like that. So I just started going through it, and, I can't actually say that I've ever heard the voice of the Lord, but I've seen his works.
Yes.
So I helped her through this just by like the grace of God. God was like, "Hey, do this." And I felt like everything lined up the way it was supposed to because of that.
Isn't that what the word says? The word tells us when we don't know what to say, the Holy Spirit will give us the words to speak.
Absolutely.
Right?
And that's exactly like, it's like that, like, it's like the epiphany that comes, but it's truly the Holy Spirit. It's spirit. God will give it to you. Yep. So God may not know. Some guys, I hear guys before say, "The Lord spoke to me." Like, I clearly heard the Lord's voice. I've clearly, the Lord appeared to me in a certain form, or I knew that was the Lord, that kind of thing. I can say that I've seen the Lord through the actions that he's just put in front of me. Yep. So
the evidence was manifested.
Absolutely. Absolutely, man. So then we had another person pass away in the congregation, and I was, again, one of the first people that they called because the pastor was gone.
So this is like 2019?
This is 2019.
Yeah. Was this COVID stuff yet?
No, not COVID yet. So that which was interesting, because the way the sheriff's office works, they don't actually have a medical retirement. I should have been medically retired, but they don't have anything for like disabled law enforcement to like get a paycheck, kind of like the VA or whatever, to keep your pay going. So the sheriff.
Is that still to this day?
That's still to this day.
Wow.
So,
geez, if you're in government, listen, get these guys paid.
Seriously. Yeah. It's insane. I've met so many guys through the MC1 Foundation. So like the Denver guy that you were talking about and that kind of thing. There's a ton of us. He's still
on the force.
He is.
Yeah.
But we know other guys who have got
and I think
discharged.
That's why he didn't medically retire. He went back on the job.
Yeah.
And he's doing really well.
Yeah. There's guys who just cannot function
Actually,
anymore.
He's pretty good at jiu-jitsu too.
I believe it.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's pretty fit. I don't want to face him.
Yeah.
If I had to face him in battle, I'd just shoot him.
Yeah. His fist, he's really good at the Ezekiel chokes, right? And to do it nicely, you don't put your fist in your throat, but this guy likes putting his fist in your throat. Right? We almost welcome it now when you train with him. But yeah, we give him a lot of grace because of what he went through.
Oh yeah. Like, all right. Yeah. Okay, you got shot. Yeah. I guess I'll give
put your fist in my throat, bro. And choke me.
Correct. All right. So, yeah,
I still won't let him tap me though.
Yeah, don't let him tap you. Don't
if he's listening. It's all pride and ego now, bro.
Nice. I like it. No, yeah, you can only give him so much. Like, yeah. Okay, we get it. You've been shot. Yeah. So, no, that's. I'll get to that here in a minute, though, about the whole medical retirement thing. But so the sheriff down there, Bill Elder, he actually sent me to polygraph school. So, and I started doing that stuff. So, and I still do that stuff today. But he was like, I wanted to give you something just in case you have to leave the job. So he kept me on for a long time.
So this was kind of like job security stuff. So you're now getting some job security training. Just in case things don't work out for you. Yes.
And so I went to polygraph school, which is awesome because now I'm a lie detector person. So, which is a whole nother episode in and of itself.
Yeah.
So, but at the same time I was doing that, I still felt the calling from the Lord and everything. So, Brian and I had been talking about it and he's like, man, at this point I was working for him just as like an assistant. The elders hadn't really ordained me or anything, but they were like, hey, we want you to be available to help with like when stuff comes up. I was working as kind of like an elder in the church. And about a year after polygraph school. So
now at this point, let's just make this clear. There's some qualifications for elders in the scripture.
Yes.
Right. Were you aspiring to those things at this point? Now, were you being a good dad and running your home?
Oh yeah.
Not drinking and all that good stuff.
Oh yeah. So we were being sober-minded.
Yes.
I was working to take care of my first ministry, my home life.
Amen.
That was the biggest thing, is being a good role model for my kids. So reading the Bible.
I think the danger is a lot of churches will jump in with a story like yours and go, oh, we're going to make this guy an elder.
Yeah.
And, take advantage, but not allowing the process to play out. We had a guy at our church, at one point wanted to start serving immediately at the church in a level that he wasn't qualified for at this point. And I'm not saying qualified vocationally, spiritually.
Yeah.
And then he got all upset and left the church, right? Because they were like, hey bro, just slow it down.
Yeah.
Wait it out, wait the process out. And I think that speaks to a guy's heart, what do you mean I have to wait? I want ministry my way, and when they don't get it their way, they bolt. And that's really a reflection of the heart.
Oh, yeah. And so and let me be straight, I did not ask for that role or anything. What ended up happening is after the couple folks had died in our congregation and I had started helping out with these different things, it just kind of naturally like flowed to the point where the Brian's wife actually came to me first and was like, I think God's calling you for ministry. You should probably seek the Lord on that. I was like, no.
Well, they say the pastor's wife has the most discernment anyway.
Right.
So, coming from her.
For real. Yeah.
Brian was like, all right.
Yeah. Brian was like,
ready.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think there's something there. So Brian actually sat down with me and he's like, hey man, I want you to be my assistant. I want you to think about doing that. I want you and your wife to pray on it. And I think I see this in you. And I really want you to consider doing this stuff. So I started making sure that I was in the word. I was making sure that my family was first and foremost being taken care of. And then I could just do when I need to.
Did you feel qualified for this at this point? To be his assistant.
I still don't feel qualified to do it.
That's a good answer, bro. It's interesting. It reminds me of a verse in 1 Corinthians 1. It says, instead, God chose the things of this world that the world considers foolish in order to shame those who think they are wise. And he chose things that are powerless to shame those who are powerful. So I think that thinking you're qualified for any ministry is comical.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because God uses broken, unqualified instruments for his glory.
Oh, yeah. All the time.
And so even though you didn't live a life of perfection and faith, lukewarm, admittedly, and same with Jared and I, we've talked about it. We don't feel qualified to do this podcast sometimes.
No,
it's just, we say, okay, Lord, and that's, another episode happens. And so I'm thankful that you mentioned that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. For anybody that feels just a calling on themselves from the Lord, pray, commune with God, ask God, what does that look like? Yeah. God, where do you see me? Direct me, show me that path. Don't rely on yourself. Like we always rely on ourselves because we're like, oh, I think I want to be this. Maybe God, you may want to be like the senior pastor, but God may be calling you to be a janitor, bro.
Yeah.
And you gotta be thankful that the Lord is even calling you.
Well, this is because our world puts such a high value and price on the go-getters.
Yeah.
Right. Ministry is not like that.
No.
And I remember at one point early on in my walk, I was trying to aspire to things.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if I could just get to this level, in ministry and it came from military because that's how we get promoted, right?
Oh, yeah.
Being awesome.
Yeah.
And then in business, knocking the sales out of the park, getting promoted, those are things that help us. But in ministry, it's totally opposite.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was maybe even 6 or 7 years ago. Mm-hmm. That's when the Lord really just kind of was like, stop trying. and I just went, okay, Lord, I'll be the toilet cleaner or I'll be the security guy and humbly serve you wherever you open the door.
Yeah.
And just being willing to do that says a lot. Right.
Yeah.
And not going, hey guys, look, I'm scrubbing the toilet over here. It's none of that. It's just like, hey, Lord, wherever you want to use me.
Yeah.
And just being open to those things.
Yeah. What do you got in mind? Yeah. So like I've at the church, just things started happening to where.
Well, as an assistant pastor, you kind of clean the bathrooms and pick up cigarette butts and, whatever, kiss babies and change babies.
Oh, yeah. No, and that was the thing is like, Brian was like, hey, can you do this? Hey, can you do this? Hey, this is a need. So I just would do it. And that's still how we really handle the jobs and everything. We're a smaller congregation, which there's nothing wrong with. But that leaves a lot of openings and that kind of thing. I don't care what he tells me to do. I'm going to go do it just because I'm glad to be there.
You're doing it onto the Lord.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not onto Brian.
Yeah. So I'm just happy to be there.
Yeah.
So,
and a lot of times I just want to sidetrack there for a second.
Yeah.
Right. You see servant leadership all throughout the scriptures, right? You see that Joshua was an assistant to Moses.
Yeah.
And then the Lord raises him up to take the children of Israel across. And at the very first chapter of Joshua, right, the Bible tells us that Moses, a servant of the Lord, so you're going to serve the Lord ultimately.
Yeah.
Right. So it doesn't matter the person that you're serving. Yeah. God will raise you up.
Yeah.
Do unto the Lord.
And, the story of how Paul became Paul instead of Saul and that kind of thing. He had a single role in mind for that person. So for the life of me, I can't remember the name of the guy from Antioch. I don't know why I can't remember this. Like it's on the tip of my tongue. Anyways, but all he wanted him to do was go and say, hey, God has forgiven you for these and heal his eyes and that kind of thing. Like who's saying that you may not be, that may be your only role, but then look at what Paul did.
Yeah.
Look at all the great things that Paul was able to accomplish. So does it matter if you're the maybe cleaning that toilet is going to put you somewhere else in life or put someone else in life? Maybe they're going to be like, you know what? That dude did such a good job cleaning the toilets. You know, I'm going to come to Christ. You know,
never know.
It's huge. It's huge.
So I just wanted you to see it. It's Ananias.
Ananias. Thank you.
Yeah.
Ananias. So Ananias was the one who went to
the Lord told him to go see told Paul to go see him.
He told him, he's like, hey, go see him and tell him that his eyesight is healed because because I'm giving you that. I'm telling you to go do that. And he didn't question it. Yeah. He's like, well, I'm sure he probably actually questioned a little bit himself. He's like, why am I going to see this dude who's killing Jews?
Right. Well, actually, Ananias is like, why are you sending Paul to me?
Yeah.
Right.
Like, what?
Yeah.
So
that's a bad dude.
It's like he's going to see this dude who is killing Christians. Like, that is a huge thing. And he did that one thing. That's pretty much all we hear from him in the Bible. But then Paul goes and does all the great things that he does. Like, that's huge.
Yeah.
Who says that we're not that person? Who says we're not Ananias? So, like, who says we're not something that God has us doing is going to benefit the kingdom later on?
There's value in being insignificant.
Absolutely, man.
In a world where social media is the thing.
Right. It's huge.
So, Scott, we do this thing called Final Thoughts. But before we go there, I just want to, thank the Lord for you and that he's used your story, used your service to get you to where you are today. Right. So, you're not necessarily chasing down bad guys, but you're still serving the public and the world. Right. Instead of saving people on the street physically, you're saving them spiritually. You're an instrument in the Lord's hands to help get them to a point of knowing who Jesus is. So if you remember this, Paul wrote, this is in the book of Acts. Luke wrote it, but Paul says, but none of these things moves me, nor do I count my life dear to myself so that I might finish my race with joy and the ministry which I received from the Lord Jesus to testify to the gospel of the grace of God. And I believe that's a word for you, bro, that God has opened up this ministry for you to finish your race with joy. And you have a lot to be grateful for, more than most, right? That the Lord has sustained you and has a purpose and plan that still is playing out, which is exciting, right? Yeah. Some people go, oh, I'm an assistant pastor now. Your story's not over.
No.
God is still going to use it. So we do this thing called Final Thoughts where we wrap up the program where I had asked you to just pray about something that we speak about during the episode or something that even the Lord puts on your heart before the episode that you could speak in the guys' lives that might be listening right now, right? And maybe not everyone on the air or listening on the air right now has been shot or has been close to death. Maybe they have. But it could come to a point where they're close to their spiritual death.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's always a wake up call as well. Like, hey, my wife is about to leave me. Like that's a spiritual wake up call.
Yeah.
Right. Or one of my kids has gone south. That's a spiritual wake up call.
Absolutely.
So what do you got for us?
I would say no matter how bad things get, no matter where you are, either spiritually or where you're at physically, we always feel like we've always hit that low point. But no matter how bad things get, God has given you something to live for. God has given you something to strive to better yourself for. God wants us to fight. He never says to stop fighting. So he never says to stop being a warrior. He may tell us to be still at times, but God has given us this ability to fight for what we believe. And that is huge. If you look around, just take a moment before you feel like everything is done, before you take the last step to do something that you may regret doing.
Yeah.
Take a step back and look and see, what has God given me to fight for? No matter where you are, don't give up. God has it on you. You shouldn't give up on yourself either.
Man, what a great word. Thank you for that. And that coming in light of a few suicides, guys have committed suicide here in our community. Guys are struggling right now. Actually, I just saw from a buddy of ours in Minnesota, his dad on Father's Day committed suicide. Right. So it's never that bad. And, and that verse or that idea, the verse that you shared, be still and know that I am Lord, that comes from the book of Isaiah.
Yeah.
Sometimes we need to get still. Yesterday, I went for a little walk up on the mesa in Crystal Valley Ranch. And I said, I just needed some time with the Lord.
Yeah.
Just to get up on top of the mountain, get still, get silent, no music, just me, the dirt, and the Lord.
Yeah. Let the Lord guide it, man. If you just take a step back and look at what the Lord's given you, like it's never to the point where you've lost everything. God's always given us something. God's always has something in the back. Maybe you're in a fight with your spouse, but you still have your kids. Yep. Maybe you don't have your kids, but you know what? Eventually you may get to that point. There's tons of things that the Lord has given us. Maybe we're ministering to a friend or something like that. Man, we still have stuff to fight for.
Yes.
Yeah.
And God has given us that.
Man, if you still have breath, your story's not over.
Yes,
absolutely.
Thank you, Scott, for coming on. We're really honored, and we loved having you on, and hopefully we can have you on again.
Yeah.
Thank you for your service. We thank your family for the time that you're spending with us, and we definitely will be in your prayer corner.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
And thank you, everyone, for listening. Until the next time, we'll be back.